Welcome to Arcade Memories, where I will go over great arcade games that not only littered the American landscape back in the day, but those that stuck with me over the years and made an impact in my young gaming life. This month,
Donkey Kong Jr.
At some point in time, we all get our start with video games. Some of us got our first crack at them in the arcades, some of us got our first taste on home computers, while others enjoyed them for the first time on a home console. I recall going to the arcade joints very early in my life, but those memories are fuzzy for the most part, until I came upon this cabinet right here, Donkey Kong Jr. It was quietly tucked away inside a small Cuban cafe spot located at the corner of a street near my house. I saw it as my mom and I walked to the laundromat that was in that same shopping strip, and it caught my eye immediately. The bright orange side wood panels, that soft pastel-like color, the soft curved edges. Oh my god, it even has a silly monkey drawing on the side. I was floored. I plugged down this large silver coin into the cabinet, and this loud noise immediately welcomed it into its hungry, coin-filled belly. That was followed by a large gorilla being hoisted up in a cage by these two guys up here on the top. Were they twins? Are they going to sell him to someone? My tiny little mind raced with so many questions, so many of them. And I was wondering to myself, why did he get into this situation? Oh crap, the game started. So right away, it was clear who I was and what my mission was. I was the little monkey, and I was gonna go save the bigger monkey. But the game, it was intriguing. A little kid monkey, or ape, or whatever he is, going up against some evil henchman and his mutated traps? What? You know, for those out there that might not be too knowledgeable with this title, let's go over some little details. So we all know by now it's a sequel to Donkey Kong. Nintendo was not about to let their mass popularity uptake in the arcade go to waste. They needed to capitalize on it, and quickly. So Nintendo wanted Miyamoto and team to come up with a new arcade while the fire was still hot. Now, the reason why it's so different from Donkey Kong in terms of concept is due to hardware limitations. You see, Miyamoto wanted the player to take control of Donkey Kong for the sequel, but he was too big of a character to properly animate with pixels using the technology of that time. Also, this was before side-scrolling platformers were a thing, so a huge character like Donkey Kong inside only one screen would pose issues with controls and, most importantly, gameplay. So Miyamoto thought to himself how he would make the character smaller. Turns out the idea pivoted to making a small ape that was around the same size as Mario was in the first Donkey Kong. Well, there you have it, Junior was born. But the team still wanted to keep Donkey Kong on top of the screen, so the game slightly resembles the original. So they came up with the idea that Donkey Kong is captured by Mario. Little known trivia is that Donkey Kong Jr. was created by reverse engineering the original Donkey Kong arcade game, since Nintendo did not program that title, but was rather done by a company called Ikegami Tsushinki. Nintendo hired a programmer to reverse engineer that game so that Nintendo themselves could create the Donkey Kong sequel game without having to pay that company. That led to a massive lawsuit that I'm not gonna go over on this video, but it was eventually settled out of court in 1990. This means that Donkey Kong Jr. is technically the first Donkey Kong title made entirely by Nintendo themselves, from design all the way up to programming. The game was released in 1982 in Japan and in the US, with Europe only getting a port of the title on the ColecoVision in 1983. I'm gonna get to the home ports in a little bit. The game consists of 4 screens, or levels if you will. The first is the jungle stage. Here we meet Mario up top, who is ordering blue Snapjaws, that's what they're called, to come down the vines in the hopes of biting you. Now, what are they exactly? Well, I guess they're like traps that are brought to life. I don't know. There are the red ones that actually just stay on platforms and climb up and down the vines. The blue ones just tend to come down the vines and just drop down into the water. We also learn here that the fruits hanging about are your only means of a weapon to use against these enemies. You also get to learn how to use the controls, with Junior being able to climb faster with 2 hands but can slide down faster if holding on to only one vine. You will need to master these 2 techniques to get through 3 of the stages. The jumping stage, which I guess it's called that because of the trampoline right at the start, that would make sense. This one to me was the hardest of all the stages. Once you get past the tricky trampoline part here, you have this very tight and narrow passage towards the right side of the screen, while Mario sends wave after wave of these guys right here called nitpickers. This section, at least to me, is the trickiest part of the game. Oh yeah, I forgot, they poop out eggs. After that, you got Mario's Factory or Hideout, which is this futuristic sci-fi themed looking place with electricity looking things flowing and zipping from one side of the screen to the other. This one was a real intimidating level when I first saw it, and I had to compose myself for a minute or two as I carefully plotted and tried memorizing what the enemies were doing before I even made a move. This level right here is also the only one where your climbing techniques, they're not gonna help. Jumping is your best move here. The sparks here are called sparks. Ugh. After that is the chain key screen. By the way, I'm not saying these names are the official ones for the levels, but they are as close as they can be to explaining what they are. This one is supposed to be the last level of the game. Mario has brought his prized cage possession to the top of some, I don't know, industrial setting and has locked the cage via a set of keys that are tied to the chains. And he has hired more birds because, I don't know, I guess the other ones had a one-level contract, I don't know. And he has also brought back the Snapjaws from the first level. This is the only level in the game where two different sets of enemies share the spotlight. Unlock Papa here and you get this cutscene. Oh my bad, spoiler alert for a 42-year-old game. The US version of the arcade places stages in a different sequence than the Japanese one. On the Japanese arcade, the stages play out like this. The jungle stage, the jumping stage, the factory, and finally the chain key level. That makes sense. You get the ending sequence as the payoff to the entire playthrough. But in the US version, it plays out like this. Jungle stage, chain key level. Why? That makes no sense whatsoever. You put the ending right there on the second level. Then you start over on the jungle scene, but now it is followed by the jumping level, and then again the chain key level. After that it starts up again, but the factory level is added before the final chain key level. So the sequence goes like this: 1-4, 1-2-4, 1-3-4, 1-2-3-4. Now from a business standpoint, that was the proper way to optimize gamers would spend more coins in the long run. In Japan, it just followed the proper sequence of 1, 2, 3, 4 over and over again until you lost all your lives. In the US, however, arcade owners wanted to suck as much money from the kids as legally possible and had no remorse. None whatsoever. While Donkey Kong Jr. wasn't as massive as Donkey Kong, it did further cement the notion that Nintendo and the team behind it was a force to be reckoned with. The game would get ported to many consoles and some computers of that day, like the Atom. I mean, you all remember the Atom, right? Right? Of course not, because it was a piece of shit. Here's a quick look at some of the other ports. Also, the reason you don't see a 5200 version of this game or even Donkey Kong is due to licensing rights that Coleco won over Atari, giving Coleco exclusive rights to home ports while Atari got the rights to release them on the computer side. The 2600 version is, and will always be a horrendous take on the arcade, even by 2600 standards. This is right up there with that Popeye port on the Odyssey 2. Oh, those were some dark time, folks. Real dark. The ColecoVision port of this game was pretty impressive, just as the original Donkey Kong was. Interesting thing here is that this port was reverse engineered and not created using any original code from the arcade. The NES port would be the most accurate one outside of the arcade version. The only problem was that by the time that it came out, platformers were the new thing, and games like arcade ports here they didn't grab the attention they would have had they been released years earlier. Then we get the 7800 version. You know how we sometimes give out trophies and ribbons just for trying? I know it's 2024, I know it's 34 years too late, but damn it, after seeing this game in action, I'm gonna give you guys the You Tried award. You tried, Atari. You tried. Aside from major consoles and computers getting a port, there were also weird international versions of this game, such as Monkey Dong, which was released in Brazil on the Splice Vision. What the hell? This was actually a clone of the ColecoVision. There was also a Game & Watch version of this game and a Coleco mini arcade tabletop game as well. So what is my biggest memory of this game right here? Well, it was my first arcade experience. I had played some Atari titles at a friend's house, but Donkey Kong Jr. was the equivalent of playing a cartoon story back then. The cabinet caught your eye immediately, especially if you were a kid. You had these bright colors, pastel-like colors. You had these goofy looking characters on the side of the cabinet and on the front decals as well. Anyway, this game is what made me fall in love with gaming and arcades in general. What I saw in the arcades was unlimited potential when compared to the games back home. Unfortunately, by the time the NES came out, games overall were evolving past what previous arcade games like Donkey Kong and its sequel had to offer. So gamers moved on, including myself. And somehow we got games like Donkey Kong Jr. Math. Also, if you play the NES version of Donkey Kong Jr., in this game, it seems like Mario dies after he falls. I mean, look at him. He's just lying there. He's not moving. In the arcade, at least he gets up and gets his ass kicked across the screen. Here, he's not moving. Jeez, you know what? I think he's dead. Holy shit. Nintendo killed Mario. He's dead. He's freaking dead. Oh, no, never mind. He's okay. He's fine. Junior would go on to star and guest star in a few other titles, mainly Donkey Kong Country, where he is the grown-up Donkey Kong now. There was also a serial released under the Donkey Kong Jr. name, and there was a cartoon that was part of the Saturday Supercade run. In it, Junior arrives in America only to find out his dad is missing after he runs away from Mario. He befriends some biker named Bones, and together they get into some adventures. It's nothing big. I found the cartoon to be, okay, but nothing that made me miss it once it got cancelled before Junior could find his dad. You know, shame the cartoon never had a resolution or some kind of a crossover with Donkey Kong at least. Overall, the Supercade cartoons were, mediocre at best. Even as a kid, I thought they were mediocre. So, what are your thoughts on Donkey Kong Jr.? Was it a good sequel? Was it too different to make it a worthy successor to the first one? Share with us your thoughts. Until next time, keep watching and keep gaming.